Sorry, I'm a little sweaty. I just got back from a run.
Allie just got back from a run, so don't mind her hair or maybe if she's gleaming with sweat.
Thanks.
We gotta get this extended review filmed because everybody keeps asking about it.
Yeah, they do.
Obviously you saw from the thumbnail, it's the extended review of this beast. It's a giant cooler that you fill with ice, and we have a blower motor that forces air through the tube that's surrounded by ice and or ice water, and it expels really cold air.
Check out the full review in this video.
No, this is the full review.
Sorry, check out the original video. Somewhere there's a link up here.
Yeah, we'll throw a link at the actual video where we built it. Let me quickly give you the rundown of how this thing works. There's this blower motor on the side. It runs on 12 volt, which is plugged into a cigarette lighter. If you have a cigarette lighter port in your van, you can just plug this directly into that. We don't, so I plug it into this little USB adapter, then I can plug it into a USB port, and that operates the blower motor. The blower motor forces air through this ducting, which serpentines back and forth inside the cooler that's full of ice, and then it's restricted down to this 1.5 inch tubing where it blows cold, refreshing air out of the front. In theory, it's perfect, but in reality, it's a little bit less than perfect.
Oh, wow. All right, hold on. Go.
It works really well initially. Like, you put the ice in there, you turn it on, it's 100 degrees outside, you sit in front of it, really cold, refreshing air comes out, and immediately you think you've just discovered the single most greatest thing ever known to a man in the desert.
Gold. Van life gold.
Van life gold. However, there are some hang-ups.
Number one, it's for one person only.
Pretty much. If you're not sitting in front of it,
Yeah.
it doesn't really do a whole lot of justice. So if you're sitting directly in front of it, it'll definitely keep you cool. It blows cold air on your body. It's like a little personal air conditioner. Even with a cooler this big with that much ice, it should be able to cool down like the size of a van. It's really not that big. The only problem is when you want to use it is when it's like 100 degrees outside. And when it's 100 degrees outside, the sun is usually baking down on the van. So I think that this produces cold air about as quickly as the sun is like heating up and penetrating the van. So you're really fighting the hot and the cold at the same time, and you're not really making any progress. If you're sitting in front of it, it's really nice.
Drawback number two, it's enormous.
It's huge. I got a really big cooler because I wanted to have a lot of ice, because I wanted the ice to last for a really long time and I wanted it to be really efficient.
Which the ice does last.
Yeah, the ice lasted for like 2 whole days.
Yeah, for those of you wondering, it really does last.
Really well.
But it's enormous, and we live in a van, and yeah, it could be like extra seating, but it cannot be extra storage. It's its own purpose.
Yeah.
And it takes up a lot of space.
And it's just another thing that you've got to move from the bed to the floor to the front seats or wherever you're trying to move it to day after day after day. It becomes pretty annoying. So if you wanted to build one, I would recommend building one out of a very small cooler that wouldn't get in the way too often. And speaking of, go ahead.
Or live in a house.
Or live in a house. As you can see, it's not like super inconvenient, but it's just the size of like a regular cooler. So if you wanna get it, if you wanna get it out, you just gotta be very strategic. Hang up number 3. It leaks. It doesn't just leak where I put the caulk. Where I put the caulk, it did a fantastic job. It didn't look pretty, but it's sealed. You could turn the thing on its side, no water would come out, everything was fine. The problem is the flexible ducting has basically holes in it to allow for like moisture to escape if you're using that for some type of ducting. I don't really know the purpose of the holes. I also didn't know the holes were in there. So after this thing sits for an hour and the ice starts to melt, water starts to fill up inside the little duct. And then when you're a smart guy like me, you leave the cooler on the bed. And then we drive around town. And guess what happens?
You've watered your mattress.
Water comes out of the hole where the pump is because the tube is full of water. So you take a corner, the water sloshes out. Unbeknownst to you, you've got 2 gallons of water in your mattress now.
And then you don't find it till 4 or 5 hours later, and it's a huge deal, and your girlfriend is really happy with you. It's just like a whole snowball effect.
Luckily, in Utah, it's extremely dry, and it was 100+ degrees. So the water pretty much evaporated and dried up. We don't have like mold or any weird issues like that. But it's definitely a learning experience. I would have to say that if I wanted to try and do this again, I would use a different type of ducting. Not like a rubber ducting or anything, because you wouldn't get the heat transfer as well, but maybe like some copper tubing of some type, or some aluminum pipe that you could actually seal together so water wouldn't get through. I'm not 100% sure on what I would do.
I thought you were gonna say rubber ducky.
No rubber ducky. I don't know exactly what I would do in the future, but I do know that after this thing wet the bed, Allie was super turned off about it.
A little bit.
And the fact that if we turned it on in the van when it was 100 degrees and we were both working, one of us would have to be sitting in front of it and the other person is sweating to death. I think one of the biggest reasons that it sucks is because you want to like turn it on and you want to close the roof vent and close the window so it doesn't let any hot air in from outside. So instead of having like a nice airflow going through the van, you've got a sealed environment, which, just like any car sitting in the sun, heats up. It heats up rapidly, right? So this thing cannot combat that heat at the same rate.
So for all of those of you who asked about whether it lowers the ambient temperature, not really.
I got it to lower the ambient temperature like 3 degrees according to our thermostat, and I wanted to give it like more of an extended review. But pretty much every time we ran it for longer than like an hour, it didn't really change the temperature that much. Now, in the comments of the original video, I've had a lot of like astrophysicists or whoever they are give me like the
YouTube
breakdowns.
Astrophysicists.
Yeah, the Reddit kings. They got on there and gave me like the BTUs of how fast ice melts in relation to how much air changing into temperature drop and blah, blah,
Obviously,
blah.
Trent followed all of that very closely.
Obviously, I have no idea what they're talking about, but they basically gave me all these equations that are like, it would take 40 pounds of ice per day to cool your van, and it's like, sure, I don't know, but this thing can't melt ice that fast, so maybe this model just isn't that efficient. My findings is that when it's over 100 degrees, no, it does not work. If it's 90 degrees or 85 degrees, this thing might work quite well. I think that if you can get to a temperature where the van temperature isn't rising faster than the ice can melt, then you're gonna have some type of teeter-totter where you're actually gonna start to have a cooling effect. We never tried to use it in a temperature that cool. Anybody that says that these work probably is in one of those temperatures.
Okay, so it really only cools one person at a time, it's huge, and it leaks. Those are the 3 main findings that we felt like made it maybe not worth it for us to continue to lug this thing around, especially since we really only needed it when it was like 120 degrees, which definitely was a reality for us for about 4 weeks this summer.
Yeah.
Now it's finally getting to the point where it's cool enough at night that we don't need it and we can, you know, find shade and stuff during the day. When it's below 100 degrees, I feel like the roof vent and the window circulation that we have going on is plenty to cool the van off. This was really for like extreme heat.
Well, that's the problem, is like as soon as it's efficient for our roof vent and our window to create a wind tunnel, that's when this thing would actually be effective. So it's almost redundant for us to even use it. It hasn't really worked.
But this has worked for other people.
Yeah, if you've had this thing work in this configuration, not with like copper tubing or an evaporation cooler or something like that, let us know. Maybe I did something wrong.
Yeah, that could be possible.
I really do think that this thing makes an awesome seat.
Yeah,
it's probably really refreshing when it's only like 85 degrees. Maybe it even lowers the ambient temperature at that temperature. I don't know how to say that. But yeah, if you guys have any questions about the thing we built, if you want to buy this one.
Oh yeah, if anybody wants it, we got an extra one.
To the highest bidder. Trent and Allie's air conditioning.
$5.
But yeah, if you guys have any questions, hit us in the comments.
I think that's it.
Yeah.
If you thought this air conditioner was going to work, could you just quickly like this video? If you thought this air conditioner was not going to work, quickly like this video. And subscribe if you haven't already. We would appreciate that too.
Yeah.
And I think that's it for now.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Bye.
See you next time.